Thank you very much for being here, everyone. It's a nice warm day. I'm enjoying working on my tan. I thank you for coming and joining with me for this important development. Canada's Arctic is under threat. Here are the facts. In the fall of 2022, the Canadian military found and retrieved Chinese monitoring buoys in the Arctic. And just last summer, a Canadian warship on patrol encountered a Chinese polar research vessel in the Bering Strait of off Alaska. Despite its borders being approximately 1,500 kilometers from the Arctic Circle, China now considers itself to be a, quote, near Arctic state. The Department of National Defense last year also noted, and I quote, Russia continues to modernize and build up its military in the Arctic, investing in new bases and infrastructure. It also possesses robust Arctic naval presence with submarines, surface combatants, and an icebreaker fleet much larger than those of other Arctic powers. The Pentagon also warned of potential Russian action in the Arctic, including jamming GPS satellites. Hostile powers want our resources, our shipping routes, and to be in striking distance of our continent. Let me be clear. The Canadian Arctic belongs to Canadians, and Canadians will take back control of their Arctic waters, Arctic skies, and Arctic land. After 9 years of liberal incompetence and disdain, our military is weakened and our allies no longer respect us. Our safety, territory, and trade with the U.S. requires we take back control of our north. This gigantic area makes up 40% of our land mass and 75% of our coastline. 140,000 patriotic Canadians call it home across 72 communities. Since time immemorial, the Indigenous peoples have triumphed over harsh climate, harvested land and sea for food, and passed their precious traditions on to their children and down the ages. We grew up on the folklore of fur traders, explorers, and others who charted the Northwest Passage. Writers like Robert Service, artists like the Group of Seven, and Inuit sculptors shaped our polar identity. We are the true North, strong and free. As the world grows more dangerous, our brave men and women in the Canadian Armed Forces, especially the mighty Canadian Rangers, must have the resources that they require. That's why the last common sense Conservative government invested in the North, the Arctic Patrol Ships Project, on top of investing in the naval facility in Nunavut, which is due to go online this year. But then the Liberals took office and failed our North and our forces. And Canada still doesn't have a permanent military base in the Arctic, while at the same time Russia has reopened Soviet bases and expanded its Navy's northern fleet over the last few decades. They've also developed new hypersonic missiles designed to evade NATO's defenses. What do you think they want those for? Russia even has ground force bases within the Arctic Circle, and they have more bases within the Arctic Circle than all NATO forces combined. This is a wake-up call. We need to become self-reliant and protect our interests and our sovereignty. That's why I'm announcing today part of my Canada First plan to take back control of the Canadian Arctic. One, we will double the size of the first patrol group of the Canadian Rangers from 2,000 to 4,000 Rangers. The Canadian Rangers provide self-sufficient mobile forces to support the military. They often report suspicious and unusual activities while providing local knowledge and expertise to the broader Canadian forces. Two, we will acquire 2 additional polar icebreakers for the Royal Canadian Navy. These icebreakers will be on top of the current icebreakers that Seaspan and Davie shipyards are already building for the Coast Guard. The Liberals have promised these 2 heavy icebreakers, but not said when they will deliver them. I will deliver the Coast Guard icebreakers by 2029. And they will be on top of the 2 new Navy icebreakers that I just mentioned. So to sum up, under our common sense conservative plan, Canada will get 2 new heavy icebreakers for the Coast Guard and 2 new heavy icebreakers for the Canadian Navy. 3, the Canada First plan of the Conservative government will build Canada's first permanent Arctic military base since the Cold War. It will be CFB Iqaluit, right here in this community. We will build it in consultation with military experts, local government leaders, and the Indigenous population. Iqaluit already has a functional a forward operating location and a functional airport and seaport that can accommodate the Canadian forces. Iqaluit already has between 7,000 and 9,000 people, so the base would not be isolated and would bring increased quality of life and economic development to this important city. The base will host the Royal Canadian Air Force Wing. It will launch F-35s as fighter jets. It will also provide a place to launch and land Poseidon P-8s that will deter threats and carry out search and rescue, anti-submarine warfare, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance work. The Royal Canadian Navy and Coast Guard could also continue to use Iqaluit's seaport as a base of operations to conduct maritime surveillance and icebreaking in Canada's Northwest Passage and beyond. It would also help NORAD detect, deter, and if necessary, destroy any incoming threats. It will fuel local economic development, transportation, and infrastructure. All of these improvements will be funded by dramatically cutting foreign aid, a lot of which goes to dictators, terrorists, and global bureaucracies. We've got enough problems at home. We've got our own backyard to protect. We can't be sending billions of dollars to other places. Often much of it is wasted and stolen and swallowed up by bureaucracies that act against our interest. I will be bringing our money home with massive cuts to these wasteful and corrupt foreign aid grants. So Canadians will decide, with Trudeau, Carney, Liberals, more and more billions of dollars will go to global and globalist organizations, while our people at home are starving and our military is unable to defend our territory. Or they can bring it home with common sense conservatives who will make sure our money serves our people, our sovereignty, and our interests. And we will also go ahead with the already planned defense update, NORAD modernization plans that include, among other things, advanced air-to-air missiles, air-to-air refueling aircraft, upgrades at the forward operating locations in Nunavut, Yellowknife, Goose Bay, and of course the new base here in Iqaluit. Other upgrades include early warning aircraft, northern operational support hubs, new submarines to replace the failing Victoria-class fleet, tactical helicopters, and a new satellite ground station in the Arctic. Common sense conservatives will deliver all of these things faster than the current Liberal plan by cutting red tape and delays. If we are to be a sovereign, self-reliant nation, we must take control of our north, secure all of our borders, and stand on our own 2 feet. We cannot count on the Americans to do it for us anymore. This is a reality. This is the wake-up call. And let me comment on President Trump's remarks yesterday. Let me be clear. Canada will never be the 51st state. We are a proud, sovereign, and independent country. We are a patriotic people, and we will defend our future and our independence. Second, he has threatened to bring in tariffs on our steel and aluminum. We will retaliate in kind with matching tariffs on American aluminum and steel, all of the proceeds of which will be given back to our steel and aluminum industry, and any surplus will be given in tax relief for our people. But these tariff threats are a wake-up call. The Carney-Trudeau Liberals have destroyed our economy over the last 9 years. Let's think about this for a second. The Carney-Trudeau Liberal policies that doubled housing costs, doubled food bank lineups, doubled our national debt, and sent $500 billion out of our country to the United States were wrong before. They are absolutely dangerous now. The combination of Trump tariffs and Carney-Trudeau tax hikes would be an existential disaster for the Canadian economy. Mark Carney has been in charge of our economy for the last 5 years when he became Justin Trudeau's advisor. And what has been the result? Doubling the debt, printing $700 billion of inflationary cash, destroying the purchasing power of our money, shutting down pipelines that would have made us less reliant on the Americans so that they get all our oil and all our gas, a radical environmental agenda that sought to deliberately defund Canada's energy sector. That has been Mark Carney's radical agenda that Justin Trudeau has been implementing dutifully over the last 5 years. This agenda was wrong before. It is an existential threat to every Canadian's job now. And that is why we need to go in exactly the opposite direction. We need to do away with Mr. Carney's carbon tax. This is another thing. Carney told CTV about 10 days ago he's going to bring in a new tax, a new carbon tax on Canadian industry. He mentioned steel. Can you imagine what it would do to our country if at the same time Donald Trump hits our steel industry with a tariff, Mark Carney brings in a massive new carbon tax? My friends, under Mark Carney, there will be no steel making in Canada, and we will lose the most fundamental strategic building block of an economy and, frankly, our national security. These radical policies have not worked in the last 9 years, and they will be a catastrophe if they are allowed to continue for a fourth term of the Carney-Trudeau Liberals. That's why we need a strong, Canada First, common sense Conservative government that will, yes, axe taxes, build homes, fix budgets, and stop crime, that will bring home production and paychecks by repealing anti-energy laws, that will build pipelines, unapologetically build pipelines, dig mines, LNG liquefaction plants, that will pass a bring-it-home tax cut to bring back the $500 billion that the Carney-Trudeau Liberals have given to the Americans. We will take back control of our borders with more border guards. We will cut foreign aid in order to rebuild our military, reclaim our north, put Canadians back in charge of their lives in the freest nation on earth. Canada first, Canada here, Canada now, Canada forever. Let's bring it home.
So for the CFB Iqaluit military base, you said that that's one of your plans. Can you say how much you think it might cost, how much you estimate you might be able to commit, when it might be built, and do you have confidence that, unlike the Nunavut naval facility that was delayed multiple times over the years, this one won't be delayed due to harsh conditions and other things that delayed this one?
Thank you. That's a very good question. First of all, it will be part of our costed platform, and 100% of the cost of the base will come out of our foreign aid budget. In fact, today's announcement will actually reduce the deficit because I plan to cut foreign aid more than the full cost of the announcement that I've made today. This base will be up and running within 2 years of my becoming Prime Minister. En anglais, thank you very much for your question on food inflation. The Carney-Trudeau Liberals have caused the worst food inflation in 40 years. Since Carney became Trudeau's top economic advisor in 2020, we've had the worst food inflation. In fact, food prices have gone up 37% faster under Carney-Trudeau than they did in the United States during the same time. You can't blame COVID or Ukraine for that. You have to blame the Carney carbon tax. Carney now says he'll quickly pause the tax for the election before bringing back an even bigger tax after the election. which would cause starvation in many communities. I will axe all the carbon taxes. We will remove barriers to interprovincial trade so our farmers can more affordably deliver food to our northern peoples. We will, if necessary, boost funding for Nutrition North so we can get foodstuffs here. And I will assure you that every penny that I collect in counter tariffs will be used to reduce other taxes so that Canadians can afford to eat, heat, and house themselves. Finally, hunting rifles. The Carney-Trudeau Liberals have said they want to ban hunting rifles. That would be a lethal decision in northern communities. It's hard for people in the South to understand this, but hunting is not a hobby in the North. It is actually a survival. There are many families for whom the majority of protein calories actually come from hunting and fishing. You ban hunting rifles, as the Trudeau-Carney Liberals have tried to do, you starve families. So I will reject the radical Trudeau-Carney policy of banning hunting rifles. Under common sense Conservatives, people in the North, people everywhere in Canada can know with certainty you will keep your hunting rifles. We will lock down the borders against gun smugglers and gangsters. We will go after the real criminals, not the Indigenous hunters, the farmers, and the patriotic Canadians that we love so much. Thank you very much. Let's bring it home for Canada.